1. Francis Arsentiev, the Sleeping Beauty of Everest. On May 17, 1998, Francis Arsentiev and her husband Sergei began their climb up Mount Everest. She was 40 years old, from Colorado. He was called the Snow Leopard, a Soviet mountaineer who had conquered the 5 highest peaks in his country. Their goal was bold. Francis wanted to become the first American woman to reach the summit without oxygen. Everest stands 29,032 feet tall. At that height, the air holds only 1/3 of the oxygen you breathe at sea level. They carried no oxygen tanks, no radios, and no Sherpas. It was just the two of them. The night before, their son had a nightmare. 2 climbers trapped on a mountain. Unable to get down, Francis smiled and told him not to worry. On May 22nd, at 2:30 p.m., she reached the top, but they had taken too long. The safe time to turn back was 2 o'clock. Now, it was dark, and they were in the death zone where the human body shuts down within hours. During the descent, Francis and Sergei became separated. Sergei made it back to camp. Francis never did. At sunrise, Sergei took oxygen and climbed back up to find her. He never returned. 2 days later, a British climber saw a woman in purple clothing lying in the snow. Not far from the summit, it was Francis. She had been there for more than a day, frozen, alone, and barely recognizable. The climber tried to move her, but she was frozen solid. He had to make a choice: stay and die, or leave her and live. He left. Francis Arsentiev died that night. Her body remained on the mountain for 9 years. Climbers called her Sleeping Beauty, her face peaceful, her eyes closed as if she were dreaming in the snow. In 2007, she was finally moved off the trail, wrapped in an American flag, the woman who touched the top of the world and never came back down. 2. Hannelore Schmatz, the ghost on Everest. In October 1979, a German climber named Hannelore Schmatz set her sights on Everest. She was 39.com/determined. Her husband, Gerhard, had already reached the top. He told her to wait. The weather was turning. She didn't. The wind screamed. The air froze. At 1:30 p.m., she stood on the summit, tired but proud. Now she had to come down. The descent was brutal. She and her teammate, Ray Gennett, moved slowly, running out of oxygen. By nightfall, they were trapped in the death zone, 28,000 feet up. No tents, no warmth. The Sherpas begged them to keep moving. They couldn't. So they lay down in the snow. By morning, Ray was dead. Hannelore was barely alive. She tried to walk, but collapsed just 300 feet from safety. Her last words were asking for water. Her Sherpa, Sunder, had to leave her there. He made it down, but lost all his fingers and toes to frostbite. For years, Hannelore's body sat upright beside the trail, her hair blowing in the wind, her eyes open. Climbers called her the woman who watched you pass. In 1984, a storm swept her body away. She was never seen again. Hannelore Schmatz became the first woman to die on Mount Everest. 3. David Sharp, alone in the death zone. In May 2006, a British climber named David Sharp set out for the top of the world. He was 34, quiet, focused. A man who preferred to climb alone. It was his 3rd attempt on Everest. This time, he wanted to reach the summit without help. No Sherpa, no radio, no team. Only 2 oxygen bottles for emergencies. On May 14th, he stopped inside a small rock cave at 27,890 feet. There was already a body there, a frozen climber known as Green Boots. Sharp sat beside him, trying to rest. The air was thin. The cold burned like fire. Early the next morning, a group of Turkish climbers passed by. They saw him, barely conscious, lips blue. They gave him oxygen, but he was too weak to move. They went on. Later that morning, another climber offered help. David whispered, no. He still thought he could make it. All day, dozens of climbers walked past. Some stopped for a moment. Most didn't. They thought he was already dead. By nightfall, he froze, where he sat, arms wrapped around his knees, head down. David Sharp died alone, just a few hundred feet below the summit. When the news spread, the world was shocked. 40 people had seen him. None brought him down. Sir Edmund Hillary said it simply: if you see someone dying and keep climbing, you've lost something of yourself. Sharp's body stayed in Green Boots Cave, a silent reminder of how thin the line is between ambition and death.